Yo, what's going on, everybody? Hey, appreciate y'all tuning in. As always, I'm Marcus. You're at the channel of the Debt Free Dad, where we're talking finances, financial takes, financial topics. I'm letting y'all know what we got going on in the household of the Debt Free Dad because, me and my family, we're on that journey to financial freedom. More importantly, to become first generation millionaires. I probably at some point need to do a net worth update. I didn't do one since last December. So, I just didn't want to look at my accounts because the markets suck ass. But in any event, y'all know I'm always going to give the disclaimer. I'm a licensed attorney, but this isn't legal advice. This isn't financial advice. I'm just giving my opinion takes on topics and, talking about things in certain areas that I have some experience in. Now, let's talk about it. I know some of y'all maybe have seen the short I put out, but some of y'all maybe did not see the short I put out. But it was an interesting thing. I just literally Googled famous people who died without a will. And there's people who got a lot of damn money who didn't have their estate plan, didn't have finances, and all of those things in any type of order. I don't know. I just find it crazy. So some of the names that just came off of the list on random, I think I mentioned Pablo Picasso, Michael Jackson, Bob Marley, Abraham Lincoln. And this is one thing that me and Abraham Lincoln has in common because Abraham Lincoln is an attorney and he died without a will. And I'm an attorney and I bojangled for the longest before I got my will done. And I should know better. I should know better. I actually took a course at law school, but I just kind of procrastinated. And so I'm definitely going to touch bases with that. Now, today we have a special guest. I wanted to make sure I could bring people in who have some expertise in the areas. I know a lot. I don't know everything. Y'all will never know what I don't know. But if I don't know it, I damn sure get somebody who do know it. So we have an attorney today, high-speed attorney. Her name is Ashley Steps. She's been in the estate planning and the elder law game for some time now. It's well over, not well over, but over a decade. You don't want to say well over. I don't want to get beat up when she comes on here. But she's been in the game for some time now. Plus, I think one of the things that's interesting, y'all always hear me say if my kids are chuckleheads, I'm going to leave everything to the Pit Bull Association of America. That's actually a thing. Having a trust set up to take care of pets and all of that stuff. So I definitely need to get to the bottom of that because I don't know. Sometimes my kids make me feel real proud, and other times I just shake my head like, Lord bless these two. So anyway, we're gonna dive in. She's again licensed attorney out of Arkansas. She's the managing partner at her law firm, which is a really big deal to be a managing partner at a law firm. She's also an adjunct professor. Great background, great credentials. Y'all know I like to have people who got experience in the game. So let's go ahead, tag Ashley in so she can introduce herself to the Intellectual Savage family. What's going on? How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Hey, I'm well. Before I even say anything, I want to say thank you, and I'm very appreciative of you coming on board to do this.
Absolutely. It's perfect timing. October is Estate Planning Awareness Month. So,
I'm two. I'm two for two. Last month, I had someone on talking about life insurance, and it was Life Insurance Awareness Month. That's what I did. I actually Googled these months and I was like, oh, this is October. So I'm two for two. So go ahead, introduce yourself to the intellectual family, to the Intellectual Savage family, to the community. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Intellectual Savage. I love it. I love it. I am an attorney in Arkansas. My entire career has been spent doing estate planning, elder law, probate. Basically, I deal with dirt, death, and disability. I do a little real estate work, but mostly heirs property. That's one of my newest passions. We tend to lose the family home because we don't know that it can't stay in Big Mama's name for all of our lives. So
Right.
that's kind of a new passion, but I have been practicing for almost 10 years. So I'm claiming every day that I get older. So that whole being called old doesn't bother me. Again, I work with death. So I'm going to celebrate every single day. So.
Dope, dope. That's good. So, the first thing before we dive in, and as the comments come up, I'm gonna just throw some of those up on the screen. What's going on? I appreciate you tuning in all the way from this, my homegirl, my sister, all the way from Australia. So I was
Hi,
like,
Karen. I used to live in
yeah,
Canada.
God bless you for being up early in the morning watching. I definitely appreciate the support. Yeah, yeah. But one of the first things that I looked at is I always like to go, just kind of to the stats. I'm a big stats guy. I like data points and those type of things. And so the first thing I did, and I actually put a short video out. I literally just Googled famous people who died, without a will or anything like that. And Pablo Picasso, Bob Marley, Michael Jackson. I mean, the list go. Chadwick Boseman. It was so many people on that list. Abraham Lincoln, and me and Abraham Lincoln had something in common because we both were attorneys and we both knew better. He died without a will as an attorney. I'm an attorney. I lollygagged a long time. So it's a very common thing, first of all. I mean, you wouldn't think like, oh man, it's so accessible and a lot of places out there to do it. But one was very common. A lot of people who have what are really defined as actual estates, you know what I mean? Millions of dollars, multi-millions of dollars are dying without wills and any type of estate plan. But then the other thing that jumped out to me, and I don't know how current this statistic is, you may be able to shed some light on it, but 70% of African Americans pass away without a will. I mean, hey, look at me. I'm black. I got to look at the statistics as it relates to me and my people. 70%, which was, really the highest of any, race population in the United States. So I always kind of like to, start off the conversation with what is the deal, or what if, in your experience, do you think is the reluctance for people to actually deal with, you know, death in their estates? And it could be gloomy for some people, but what is your in your experience is kind of the barrier that prevents people, excuse me, from really diving in to get their estate together?
So the biggest thing that I hear from our community is I don't want my family to kill me. I don't want
I'm sorry. I didn't expect you to say that. So.
and a lot of times it's said as a joke.
Right, right,
I've
right.
heard it so many times now that it's like, okay, do we really believe this? And um, I will say that most states in the U.S. have what's called a Slayer statute. So if
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
you, they won't get your stuff. So
Right, 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 right.
I want to go on the record and say it is unlikely that they are going to try and kill you for your stuff. So do the planning. My mentor used to say all the time, if you have $1 and two relatives, you need an estate plan.
Mm,
So we like to think we don't have enough stuff, and it's not always about stuff. If you have minors, if you have kids that are under 18, or you have kids with special needs, your estate plan dictates what happens to your stuff in regards to them. It also dictates what happens to them.
right,
So we
right.
have a lot of single parents. So who would you want to care for your kid? Um, I did father's rights for a time, and it was, and I say a time, I mean a couple of months. It was interesting seeing dads have this, they have the funds to care, and then they pass away. And then it's like, okay, who's going to take care of the kid?
Mm,
Everyone's scrambling, like, oh, 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 oh. And then the money's tied up in probate, but the kids still need stuff.
right, right. Whew.
Without these estate plans, it's like uh, probate in Arkansas takes a minimum of 9 months.
Ah,
That's a
yeah.
good case. I've never had one finish in 9 months. So that's just something to look at. And it's not always about your money. It's about your loved ones. And do you really want your people fighting over your stuff. And very rarely do they fight over the money. They usually fight over other stuff. They fight over your t-shirt collection. My brother collects Jordans, and I'm pretty sure at least one of his kids would love
to get at his shoe.
so,
Right. So let me ask, just on the simplest level, and I know when you're talking about wills and trust, and they got various different types of trust. What are give us a general definition of a will versus a trust, and the actual distinction or differences between the two?
okay. So a will is the entry into formalized estate planning. Everything else is a will substitute. So the will is the baseline. It's what us attorneys call common law. So in most states, you can write your own will. If you don't have the funds, look up the rules to write a will. It's called a holographic will. It dictates what you own, how you own it, and who you want to have it. It also has a couple of other requirements. You have to be over the age of 18 and of sound mind. A trust, on the other hand, is a contract. It is a contract between the grantor or settlor, basically the person who creates the trust, and the trustee, which is the person that manages the trust.
Okay. Anything else? That's it. That's the easiest definition to give us. We want to keep it as simple as possible for me, not for the community. It's for me. I need it as simple as possible.
So I feel like that's simple, but if it's not, somebody drop in the chat that was over their head, and we can try and make it a little more bite sized.
Okay. So let me ask. I guess the first thing is, because before we get into really a lot of the details, this is clearly something that everybody needs. And like I said, me and Abraham Lincoln had a lot in common, because we just were attorneys who were like, I need a will, but whatever, it's not that big of a deal. What do you say to the person who thought like me, this is literally, I'm going to tell you, this was my real thought. It's not that big of a deal. I got everything. I just leave it to my wife. And, worst case scenario, if something happened to me, she got it. She'll take care of everything. I'll tell you, I didn't think about, oh man, what if this cruise ship we want to go down in the ocean and all of us end up? But what would you say to that person who says like that same concept? Everything I got, I'll just leave to my significant other because I trust them to do everything with it. So I don't really need a will. I just make them the beneficiary of everything and something like that.
So I'm going to answer the question you're asking, and then I'm going to answer the question that I think you want me to answer.
Right.
So in the scenario you gave, that's an estate plan.
Okay.
Leaving everything to your spouse is an estate plan. Making the beneficiary designations an estate plan. However, to have a more effective estate plan, you need to consider, okay, you want to leave everything to your wife, but do you want to leave everything to your wife's husband? Because if your wife doesn't do any estate planning, it goes to her spouse and it does not go to your children.
And y'all already know DFD position on that. Hell no. Yeah, that's a fair point. I never really thought about it that way. See, that's why me and Abraham Lincoln had to get our shit together. Well, it's too late for him. but I think that's a fair point. Now, let me ask, okay, people have beneficiaries, because I've heard of this situation, and how problematic could this be? Because I have seen situations where a person gets a will done, but which supersedes which, I would guess. If I had a beneficiary on a life insurance policy and I identified a beneficiary as person A, and that life insurance policy has been in effect for 5 years, I just don't think anything else about it. Subsequently, I say, oh man, let me not be like Lincoln and get a will done. And in that will, I mandate that everything goes to person B. Something happens to me. What happens in that situation where there's a discrepancy between a policy beneficiary and a will that was done at a later date after that policy was in place?
Great question. So a will only covers probate assets.
Okay,
So probate asset, that means it's in your estate with no beneficiary designation. So
gotcha.
you have a life insurance policy and your wife is your primary beneficiary and she survives you, she gets that life insurance policy free and clear, no restrictions. Even if your will says she has to get that life insurance policy and split it with your two sisters.
Mm.
Sorry, sisters, you're getting nothing.
So all right, that makes sense. That makes sense. So let me ask, is it common, because I don't know anybody else could speak in this, and I can only speak from situations I've seen and experienced. God bless my great great grandmother who lived to be 104 in rural South Carolina. And I think this is something that I mean, I don't know, people just probably don't know. She probably didn't know or had the information. But in trying to do the right thing, she passed away and left her house to like 16 different people. You would be amazed at the headache that I got
No, I would.
surrounded that by that. Two people wanted to keep it. Everybody else wanted to sell it. Nobody wanted to wait 60 days till the two people got their money up front. And by two people, I'm gonna say I'm one of those two people. I'm just gonna go ahead.
I can't hear you.
All right, am I back?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That was my big ass hands unplugged it. But is that a common thing where, and I'm thinking it may be more common in the older population where they leave assets to 37 people, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces. How common is that? And I know for me it was problematic as hell. But is that a common thing, or that doesn't happen as much as I'm assuming it does?
It is an extremely common thing, and that's my new passion, that heirs property. So when you leave a will and you leave property to multiple of your heirs, meaning your kids, grandkids, great grandkids, whatever, that makes that property heirs property.
Mm.
Also happens when you don't have a will and you pass away, then your property is left to your heirs according to your state's intestate succession statute. So, yes, it creates a problem, um, especially when some want to sell and some don't want to sell. Um, Arkansas and I think 14 other states have adopted the Uniform Heirs Partition Act. Don't quote me on the title, but if you Google the Uniform Heirs Property Act, it'll come up. And it put in place some protections for families. There are some steps you have to take, and before it can be purchased by an outsider. Because a lot of times, what was happening is a company would find an heir that owned 0.2% interest in this 80-acre plot, this 80-acre parcel of land, and force a sale,
Mm.
outbid everyone else, and boom, 80 acres gone.
Wow.
So it has been a huge issue, especially in the southern states.
Right.
So now that the Uniform Act is out, now before it can be sold to an outsider, there are time limits in place where other owners can purchase it before, forcing a sale to anyone else. And that we don't have any case law on it yet, but I have 3 going right now, I think.
So you're gonna set the precedent.
Don't wish that on me.
Okay. All right. So let me ask. I guess just in general, and I know it's going to vary based on states and everything where people are located, but in general, if someone's coming in the door and where you're from, what does And I know it depends on assets, but if we're talking ballpark figures for someone to get a will done and someone to get a trust done, what are ballpark figures to get those type of things done? And I know it depends on assets and where you are, but just an estimate based on where you are. Someone came in the door with average amount of assets. A will would be about this range to this range, and a trust may be this range to this range, like price wise.
So it depends on what we're drafting, how we're drafting it, how complicated it is, as you said, their assets. But a will package is anywhere from 750 to 1250, and a revocable trust package is some 25 to 5 somewhere.
Okay.
And irrevocable trusts start at 5, but those, of course, are more complicated and usually are not just that. So,
Right. So what is the distinction between the revocable and irrevocable trust? What's the difference between the two?
so the revocable trust is a probate avoidance vehicle. So we avoid probate because it's expensive. So I just quoted you those prices. So a revocable trust, 2,500 to 5,000. Whatever the assets. However, with probate, if you have $100,000 house, I'm getting paid $6,000.
Mm.
Period. Our probate fees in most states, probate fees are statutory, so the court decides what I get paid. So, um, if there's $100,000 in
I know I was laughing at the comment. That's probably the only thing that's cheaper in the U.S. than we.
So these are, so I used to work for a law firm in Australia, and their cost of living is significantly higher than the cost of living in Arkansas. And when I was there 12 years ago, it was what minimum wage was like $18 an hour. So
Right.
yeah, but yes. So with probate, it's $100,000 house nets me a $6,000 fee. I get paid first. If
Right.
there's no cash in that estate, I can ask the court to sell that property so that I get paid. And then
Mm.
after I get paid, creditors get paid. So if there are any unpaid debts, any credit card bills out there, and they file a claim and can prove that claim, they're paid next. Then the court gets paid. Actually, they got paid first, but
Right.
then the heirs get what's left. So with the revocable trust, that avoids that probate, that cost, because most, as with this housing, whatever we just had, there are no $100,000 houses anymore. So I got notice what taxes are due here in Arkansas on Monday, and I got my tax bill, and it went up 4 times. So it went up from $300 to now it's going to be $1,200.
Yeah.
A house that needs a new roof is now worth $234,000. A
Right.
2 bedroom house, 2 bedroom, 2 bath with a kitchen is $200,000. So I will absolutely take the case and take it through probate and make the $12,000 on that.
Right. Easy.
Right,
Yeah.
but I would prefer not to, because
Right.
again, I want you all to maintain wealth and pass it on versus paying these fees. And then the irrevocable trusts are asset protection trusts. So those are for so many different things. Like I know there's all these TikToks going on about setting up irrevocable trust and doing chain trust. Ooh. Um, So she just Erin's comment was that she paid 9,000 for it to set up. Some of the trusts that they're describing on TikTok are $30,000 and $40,000 estate plans, and that's just to put them together and not administer them. So um, those are a lot more complicated. They have tax issues involved. So we don't write a lot of them.
Mm.
I think we may have done 2 this year, but it's also worth noting that the estate tax is at 13 million. So no one's paying estate taxes unless their estate is worth
They
more.
got it right, right, right. I always tell people, I'll be like, man, that's a that's a certain party's election selling point. Oh, the death tax is too high. The death tax is too high. I'd be like, you don't got no estate. You just got shit. You got some stuff, okay? And the state and your stuff is two different things. Your stuff is gonna be fine, okay? So like, so
It is okay. Yeah. So I
yeah,
can say that, but I will laugh
yeah.
at you saying it.
Yeah, a lot of people think that, oh man, this death tax is too high. And I'd be like, dog, yeah, your stuff is gonna be okay. Don't worry about it. So let me talk about and ask. We know that trust gives you certain protections from certain things, and I have a friend of mine who was like, oh no, I put it in a trust because you know a trust has the ability to avoid certain things like divorce proceedings. Divorce happens, things get allocated. Anything that could come later on from other generations, can that impact kind of how that trust is set up? So what are some of the benefits? I know there's some tax benefits, some probate avoidance with all them good fees that you would get every $100,000, but what are some general benefits that people get, that people may not know about just through a trust when it comes to certain protections of your assets?
So everybody has that uncle or cousin that can't keep money. They get paid on Friday, it's gone Saturday morning. So I always tell my clients, you know your kids, even if they are still kids, you see how they appreciate things and what they do with their things. So if they don't treat their things well, what are they going to do with yours?
Right, right, right.
So, yes, we could use a trust to protect that kid from going out and buying what, 4 Hellcats. Um, I don't know who needs 4, but
Right, right.
that you could use a trust. It's a spendthrift trust to keep them from running through a ton of money because they can't hold on to it. You also have family members, or everyone wants their kid to be a doctor. So doctors are a high risk profession. They get sued, malpractice. So if you have a kid who becomes a doctor and you leave them your $15 million estate, putting it in trust prevents them, their creditors, from attaching to it. And by creditors, I mean the people who sue them for malpractice. Same
Right.
thing for your kid who drives a 1998 Honda and runs into a 2022 Maserati. Your insurance policy is not going to cover that. So any lawyer worth their snuff is going to now pursue you personally.
Right, right. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Now let me ask, children with special needs, okay? There are a lot of people out there who have children with special needs, and they're one of their biggest concerns in jobs is to make sure that if something happened, their child is taken care of. Is there a special type of trust for those situations when you have a special needs child, or is that done through a regular, general, typical type of trust? Or what's the situation with special needs? Is there some particular nuance in those situations?
Yes, special needs trusts are, they're irrevocable trust. Again, it's an asset protection trust. Most people with special needs are on needs based benefits, and in order to protect those benefits, because there are asset and income limits to those benefits. And by benefits, I mean SSI, Medicaid, CHIP, whatever your state calls it. Those are needs based benefits.
Right.
So they have limits. So if you pass away and your special needs kid inherits from you, you're going to kick them off of those programs.
Mm.
And I hear you saying, but what's wrong with being kicked off of them? Okay. So the average estate leaves a child $150,000. Do you know the cost of care for a, let's go with a paraplegic? Do you know the cost of care per month for someone who is a paraplegic? It's around $30,000 a month. So they would go through $150,000 in 3.5 months.
Right, right.
So kicking them off this program now is going to take them a year to get back on.
Mm,
And they only had the money for 3 months.
right, right, right.
So now here's a year and they have nothing and waiting to get back on. So it's, yes, it is protecting wealth, but at the same time, it's them using those funds for their care still is going to leave them worse off than if they had just disclaimed that they had given it away or said, nope, I can't have this. So the special needs trust allows them to use these funds to supplement the benefits, because as we know, it does not cover everything. I don't know if you have experience with someone who's on Medicaid, but yeah, it doesn't cover a lot of stuff, but it covers some programs you have to be on Medicaid to even get it.
Right, right.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I get that. I used to prosecute bad doctors for for Medicaid fraud and healthcare fraud. So yeah, I understand the cost of home health aides and one to ones and all of that stuff. Without any type of insurance or any program, most people can't afford that. I know. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks and 3 surgeries in 2 weeks, and I looked at that bill and I was like, God damn! Thank God my wife got that good insurance because I'd have been out here robbing banks. Look, I had to go back on the block. So, all right. So I think that's some really good insight. Because you would hate to leave someone something and it gets them off a program they need to sustain the certain level of help that they need. So that's definitely a good thing. Now let me ask a question. Um, we talked about having that trust to kind of protect kids from themselves, right? So I guess what in your opinion is the most common way that's done? Because I'll tell you one thought that I had. One thought that I had was, you know what? I'm gonna take everything, like even my life insurance policy. I'm gonna make the beneficiary of my life insurance policy the trust. You know what I mean? And then I'm thinking what I'll do is make even the beneficiary of my life insurance policy as the trust. I have X amount of dollars, knock on wood, presuming I'm old as hell when I die, but I got X amount of dollars sitting in the bank. And okay, instead of leaving my kids a bunch of stuff, because like I said, hey, I love them, but I don't know, especially with one of them, I know what I'm working with. Okay, so instead of just leaving them a shitload of stuff, have it allocated to where at on this date every year you get X amount of dollars annually, indefinitely or to the age of such and such. But what are some ways that you see people try to situate their trust to protect those assets? Because statistically, if you become a first generation millionaire, 70% of that wealth is lost in the second generation. And by the time you get to the third generation, 90% of it is gone. So, what are some ways that people set up their trust to try to protect it and protect those assets so they aren't feeling that 70% loss and that 90% loss 2 generations down the road?
So the first step is to ask your attorney for cascading trust. So most revocable trusts are, first generation. They you establish the trust and the trust pays out directly to your kids. If you don't want that to happen, you need to ask that the your kids receive it in trust,
Mm.
and then their kids receive it in trust. So if they pass away while there's still money in your trust, then your trust creates a new trust for your grandkids, and so on and so on. But you also want to encourage your kids to establish an estate plan And,
Okay.
I'm sorry, establish an effective estate plan
Right,
in
right, right.
conjunction
Okay.
with yours. Um,
Right.
but I can draft it. I can, we're real flexible. I'm laughing because I wrote one last week um, that said every 5 years they get 5% of the trust. And when they turn 50 and have common sense, they can have the rest. That is what the client asked me to put in there.
Okay, that's that. The lawyer in me is like, all right, how we define a common sense? Like, how, how, how we define a common sense?
No, and I had to let the client know I can put this in there, but the operative terms are at age 50.
Right, right, right,
And she
right.
said, it's fine. I just want to note that my child has no common sense. And
That's funny because I can see somebody in court at 50, like you turn 50, but you still don't have any common sense. But you in there trying to argue at 51, like, nah, y'all, I got common sense. That'd be hilarious. That's cool that you can set it up to have what is called cascading trust. You said those kind of ones that I guess I would say stack on top of each other to
yes,
that effect. That's interesting. Now let me see, and I gotta ask this because anybody on the channel they always know, and it's not a joke, it's honest. Like I said, you got to know what you're working with. So I tell my kids all the time, I I would rather leave you with nothing than leave you with something if it's going to be detrimental to yourself. That's just kind of my approach. Like if I, if I'm a multimillionaire and I have a kid who I know has substance abuse problems, nah, man, you're not going to get some huge Tyrone Bigham size cocaine on my watch when I leave. I'd rather leave you with nothing than give you something that could destroy you. That's just kind of how I am as a parent. And so one of the running jokes I always say, it's not really a joke, but I say if my kids don't have no common sense, I'm gonna leave everything to the Pit Bull Association of America because I love those little beautiful dogs. And so I seen that there actually are trusts that leaves assets and determine and decide for the care of certain pets. Now, one, I have two questions actually. One, how common is this? That's one. Two, of the times that you've seen it, how common is this in African American communities? Because I will tell you, just based off of my experience, I think other communities may love their pets a little bit more than us. I have some friends who got their dog some expensive surgeries and all sorts of amenities, and I have other friends who are like, no, once your quality of life go, you gotta go. So how common is this to actually have a trust that provides for the care of a pet? Is that something that you see often? Because I saw it was a thing, and I got it from reading your bio, and I was like, man, people are actually doing this. So tell me a little bit about that.
so yes, people are actually doing it, and I do not have a lot of our community doing it. It is it's an interesting um, situation to be in. So our generation, we are certainly not out here having a lot of children. So I saw a meme a couple of weeks ago that said dogs are the new kids and
Right, right,
plants are the new pets.
right.
So yeah, it's funny. Those are two of the biggest things fought over in probate: the plants from the funeral and who is going to take, not who gets the dog, but who's going to take care of the dog. And actually, it's not the dogs; it's the cats. So yeah, so pet trusts are a thing. They are real. They are upheld and enforced, and there are things in place to because the average dog has a life expectancy of 16 years.
Right.
So there's no just buying a replacement dog and substituting it, and that dog living 30 and 40 years is not a thing. So a lot of times the trust is in place maybe 5 or 6 years, and then it has a charitable purpose at the end. So
Okay, okay. Because I mean, I come from My father used to breed dogs, and I'm like, how far does this go? They having puppies and litters of puppies. Like, I need to know at some point this would have to stop. But I know that is a contested thing because I didn't realize how big pets came into play till I was talking to a family law attorney, and it was a big argument over a parakeet. Like, who wanted the parakeet? And I'm gonna be honest, the husband wanted the parakeet just out of spite because it was the wife's parakeet. And so she gave him the parakeet, but before he got the parakeet, she taught the parakeet to like insult him. So now he's stuck with this parakeet that just keeps calling him asshole. It just calls him all types of names, and it won't die. The parakeet outlived his lifespan by like 5 years. He was like, I leave the window to try to let it fly away, and it won't go away. So I know that pets are a really big deal. Now, let me ask from just, I guess, an estate planning standpoint. If we had to talk about, someone doing, the bare minimum to get started, because everybody's not going to jump out there and spend 12 bands or 9 bands or 5 bands for a trust. What would be the bare minimum things that you can do on your own or that you should do to say, hey, at least if something happens, you have some type of adequate coverage?
At the bare minimum, make sure your beneficiaries are updated. If you have been married and are divorced and now remarried, you really want to check your beneficiary designations and make sure that your previous spouse is not your beneficiary, because if you put their name and not their position, so if you put Ashley Steps down and not my wife Ashley Steps down, then Ashley Steps is getting those funds, period.
Oh,
That's
I
it's a
didn't know that. Damn. Damn, that's crazy. This words make a difference.
words make a difference.
Wow.
Um, look into doing a beneficiary deed for your property and being mindful of who you are leaving the property to. Deed restrictions are still permitted in Arkansas. I don't know about other states,
Right.
but I can absolutely draft a deed that says, um, at my death, I leave my house on, the hill to Marcus. If Marcus sells or desires to sell my house, then my house goes to D, and so on and so forth. I can keep writing it that way until, I keep it in the hands of who I want to have it.
Right, right, right. So let me ask, and that's a good point, because what I've heard some people say was, when you talk about different ways you can convey property. You can, if I hereby bequeath this property to A, if this, then this. You can set all these conditions up. And I have heard one conversation amongst people where they said, well, I don't want to go through a whole trust. So his plan was to, and this was somebody who got a PhD, so not a dumb guy. He said, I don't want to go through a whole trust. So I'm just going to leave my children life estates. So if anybody don't know, if I have a house, I can leave my son my house for his entire life. So I pass away, my son gets that house, he inherits it, he has that house for his life. If he sells that house, he only can sell his interest. So if my son sells that house to somebody else, that person only owns it as long as my son is alive. Once something happens to him, it'll go to the next place that I designated. And I think that's a creative way to do it, but I feel like it would be a little bit more. I don't know. I guess if safe is the word in the hands of a trust. What are your thoughts on someone who try to circumvent or avoids the trust to leave property in these unique, in these funny ways where you leave it to this person, and if this person graduates college, it goes to this person. But if they don't graduate college, it goes to this person. I feel like that's complicated as hell. What do you think about someone, saying, forget the trust, I'm just going to leave these life estates and have all these conditions attached to my property?
So then I have to bring up the dreaded rules against perpetuities that law school, I don't know if, if that was
Right.
you,
I
but
didn't study that for the bar. I just prayed that it was. I said, I hope this is not on the exams.
so yeah, so I won't quote the rule because I might get it wrong, but basically it all has to end.
Right. You can't do it indefinitely forever.
Right, right. So, and with life estates, someone has to have the remainder. But,
Right.
and by remainder, so someone has to have the final ownership of it. So you can
Right.
be this creative person, but essentially everyone you name has to be alive when you name them.
Right. Yeah,
It's
someone would have to get it in an absolute state at some point in time. It's absolutely unequivocally theirs. Like, okay, I leave my son a life estate, and upon my son's death, it goes to his grandchild. If he doesn't have a grandchild at his death, it goes to this person. But at least it ends with those people, and it don't got him, trying to play that indefinite game. That's funny. I had no clue. I couldn't even remember what the rule of perpetuities was. So thanks for reminding me. But the word perpetuity gave me some clue.
And then even with that, they have a better chance of being creative in a trust versus doing a deed or something else, because deeds are heavily governed by statute. Where in
Right.
trust, there's maybe 15 rules that a trust I can write a trust however you want me to within reason, and there's only 15 rules in the statute that I have to comply with. So if
Right.
if Marcus dyes his beard red, he gets $100,000. If Marcus dyes his beard purple on one side and green on the other, he gets $5 million. Like or if he does none of them, he gets nothing.
Right.
And he has to leave it that way for a year. Like I can literally write some of the most asinine things and make it extremely expensive for someone to contest it.
Right. Okay. That Yeah, I'd do all that shit. Purple, green, fuchsia. Like whatever. I'm like, man, please the court, Your Honor. I'd be in court buttoned up, arguing cases, being looking like I'm rainbow status. So I would definitely do all that. Now let me ask, I guess this kind of goes back to the beginning of the question, like why I, I don't know. I don't understand, and I can't wrap my mind around. When you see the people who die without a will or estate plan, like a Michael Jackson, Sonny Bono, I think I saw on the list. I mean, the list of people was just ridiculous, and these are people who had hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm assuming people in those categories has advisors in a lot of areas when it relates to their finance, when it relates to their business. Why the hell is that one thing that it looks like a lot of wealthy people just kind of miss? A lot of wealthy people just kind of exclude. Like I can't wrap my mind around how someone like a Michael Jackson passes away without an estate plan. You know what I mean? Like to me, it makes absolutely no sense. But why does it seem like it's not uncommon for a lot of people who are multimillionaires, hundreds of millions of dollars, to just leave that shit up to the government to determine who gets what when they pass? What the hell causes that? I don't know the type of clients, but have you ever dealt with somebody who came in like, hey, I'm 92 and this is my first time coming in, and you look and they're like, damn, they got all this damn stuff. You got all this assets. What took you so long? What is I just can't understand the reluctance. I can understand the reluctance if you're a person who don't think I don't got much. So I don't care where my little bit that I don't have go to. Even though I disagree with that in general, I can understand the logic behind it. It makes sense to me. Oh, if I don't have much, I'm not really too concerned with who get what. But when you got a lot of shit, what's the mindset there that causes people just not to do it?
It circles back around to people don't want to talk about death. Um, it's my understanding that celebrities don't think they're going to die. Uh, whatever the secret is that they have, I want to know. But
Right.
yeah, people don't want to talk about death, even though, um, the we're guaranteed to pay taxes and we're guaranteed to die. So the matter is how much and when.
Right, right, right. That's funny. So what I threw this question up on this on the screen. What are your thoughts on that?
It's up to you. Um,
Right.
if you have a controversial estate plan, I make my clients record a video and write a statement. If they're disinheriting a child, then hey, we need to write this down. I need to know why, because
Right, 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 right.
I can include this no contest clause in here all day, make it amazing, but they're getting nothing. So if they sue, they're getting nothing. They're gambling between getting their intestate share or nothing. So
Right, right.
it's a I would absolutely do it, but um, you can tell them. You don't have to. You need to tell someone so that they know where to find your stuff and how to administer it. But it's some. I have some families that come in and plan together. I'm actually working on a family plan now. Mom and dad and all of the children and their spouses are all putting together. This estate plan, which is really cool because I have to make them all talk.
Right, right, right,
Um,
right.
I also have other families come in and they talk about mom and dads together. And I always have to caution them that, hey, this can be seen as undue influence. So at some point, I still need to talk to mom and dad separately.
Right, right.
This is what they want, but this is awesome that everybody's talking. Everybody knows who's getting what. Everybody knows what role they're going to play, because something we haven't talked about is the part of your estate plan that you use while you're living,
Mm-hmm.
which are the powers of attorney,
Right.
the financial powers of attorney, and the healthcare powers of attorney. They um, those are used while you're living to manage your stuff and your health when you can't. So it's important to let those people know that they are going to serve. And also, if you have minor kids and you nominate guardians, you for sure want to tell them, maybe even ask them if they're willing to serve as guardians for your kids, because some people don't want children, whether they're there or somebody else's, they don't want them. So before you put your sibling down to get your kids, um, and I'm being funny because my brother has put me down to get his kids.
You-
I love them though. I'll take them, but you should definitely ask before you.
right, 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 right. I'm not telling anybody outside of my immediate family that they're the beneficiary of nothing. Back to that first point you made, their family may kill them. I'm not saying my family may purposely try to kill me, but like sometimes you got to know what you're working with. Certain things I would just err on the side of caution, or me personally. But yeah, I think most people, I've had those talks with, my son, my father, and those type of things. Let me ask, a person goes get a will done. Do your firm maintain, or most firms they maintain a copy of that will or something to that effect? Because we see all these stories of, oh, we such and such had a will, and where is it at? Or was it written on a tissue? Or was this his signature? Or that his signature? So do you all maintain like a separate copy of that will in the event that something happens and it's nowhere to be found?
So we keep a digital copy, and but Arkansas requires originals to be filed. There are of course
Okay.
exceptions, but um, we are only required to keep client files for 5 years. So you also run the risk of, okay, you lost the original will, then it's unlikely that they know I'm the attorney. And
Right.
there's no depot of wills outside of filing it with the court for safekeeping. So, but with a trust, um, absolutely let someone know you have a trust, and when we're funding it, we're gonna put, things in it, and a lot of your advisor, your CPA is gonna know, your financial advisor is gonna know, your bank's gonna know. So when somebody goes in with that death certificate, then the bank's gonna say, "Oh well, I need to know. I need the trustee. I need the successor trustee to call." And then the bank's gonna have my information. The CPA, the financial advisor, is going to have my information, and then they can call me. And if they can't locate the trust, then I have a copy of the trust if it's within that 5 years. If not, I can always restate it.
Okay.
Yeah, but
So
with the will, it's a little more difficult.
okay, let me ask a quick question, and you actually touched on this and brought this up. So the first question, well, I guess it's kind of both of them: a durable power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney. You talked about those: a person who can make financial decisions in the event that you're incapacitated, or something, make decisions related to your medical decisions if you become sick and can't make them for yourself. Uh, are those something that you generally recommend that people have in addition to, like I said, if they're doing the bare minimum, they're checking their beneficiaries, they got a will. Are those something that's common, or would you normally recommend for people to have just in general, at least those two, so you can have a decision maker in the event that something happens?
Absolutely. We
Okay.
do not draft a plan without them.
Okay.
They
Okay.
are required. We also offer a service to our clients if they have a kid going off to college. Then we execute powers of attorney for healthcare and financial for that kid, because we all know some of us did not know how to make doctor's appointments for ourselves because our parents did it. We also know that our parents don't necessarily see us as adults when we go to college. So and there's also federal regulations where the school can't give your parents information without a power of attorney. So
Right. Right.
yeah, if you once you turn 18, those two documents are absolutely necessary. Everybody over 18 needs it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually had that up, and when you brought it up, I was like, damn, she got right to the next point. So that's good. Now let me ask. I did have another question as it relates to in the event that you don't have a durable power of attorney, you don't have a healthcare power of attorney. What is the? Can you talk a little bit about the process that someone or a hospital would have to go through? Like, how does that work? I mean, and I know because I didn't have a healthcare power of attorney. Thank God and knock on wood that I was blessed that, hey, I had a rupture aneurysm and I was fine. I was able to get up and walk around and didn't have a slip. That's normally not the case for something like that. And, at the time, of course, I didn't have one. So I have no clue what the process would have been for the hospital to even get someone to make a decision on my behalf. So what would that look like? And what time frame does that happen in?
So some states have next of kin statutes, but not every.
Right.
Next of kin being your spouse or your parents. But I'll bring up the Terry Schiavo case. I don't know if your audience is too young to know about the Terry Schiavo case, but essentially she was in a coma for many, many years because her husband and her parents fought over whether she should remain on life support or not. Many, many years.
Mm.
So if you execute these advanced healthcare directives, then the person that you name gets to decide what happens. And hopefully you've had a discussion with them about your wants. The Looking at your question. So in Arkansas, we are required to have a separate document for healthcare and a separate document for financial. And all powers of attorney are essentially durable now in Arkansas. So once you sign it, it survives you becoming incapacitated. So dementia or in a coma. That's what durable means. But
Okay.
yeah, so if you don't have those, then you have to pursue guardianship, which again is expensive. The attorneys they're gonna make some money if you're fighting and trying to decide who's going to be guardian. Yeah, that's that's expensive. It's time consuming. The courts are backed up. So at a minimum, um, you're looking at 2, 3 months before you even get a guardianship granted. Now, there are emergency guardianships, but you need to prove the emergency.
Right, right.
Yeah. And then also, every decision you now make for that person, not every, but a lot of the major decisions that you would make for that person, you have to have court approval. So,
And we all know that can be a process. But I think your point is fair. And this was something that we touched on when we were talking about, last month when I had someone on and we were talking about life insurance policies. I just think it's an odd thing for people to talk about their death, and most folks really just don't want to do it. I think most people just I think most people just don't want to do it. Most people try to avoid that subject. Most people are scared of it or fear it. No, they didn't. They know I'm in production. So, like, yeah, I know I'm in production. What are y'all doing? So, but I think most people are scared of it. Most people fear it. Most people don't look at it. I don't know. I think I have a different view of it because I've been in so many near death situations in my life where I just don't like give a damn. Like that's God's plan, not my plan. You know what I mean? So like for me, it's nothing to sit down and talk about it. Or I could sit in an emergency room or be in a bunker in Iraq getting shot at, and I'm like, if I don't make it out, it is what it is. But a lot of people don't kind of have that mentality, and I honestly think this is just me from based on my experience. I feel like the older a person is, the more difficult that conversation is to have. You know what I mean? Like, for someone like myself, it's not that big of a deal. But, when I got my 68, 69-year-old father to sit down and talk about a will, he just woke up some mornings with an attitude because I don't think he liked talking to the lawyer about death. Like, God damn it, they getting on my nerves. And I was like, hey, what's the problem? I think he was just grouchy because he was coming to grips with like, hey, I'm not a rock star. I'm not gonna live forever. You know what I mean? So I think that's really the big fear. So I think and unless we got a questions, we can kind of get to the point where we can close this out. But let's give us your key takeaways for estate planning. If it were 2 or 3 salient points that you wanted to emphasize to everybody, if you when it comes to estate planning, if you can do A, B, and C, these 2 or 3 things, you'll put yourself in a prime position. One where you're ahead of the curve as far as estate planning, but you're putting yourself in a position where you can really protect your assets and make sure that you got things in place for your loved one. What would be those 2 or 3 gems that you would drop that you would recommend doing?
I would recommend getting life insurance. That's number one. I met with one of my agents today. Um, the second thing, get powers of attorney in place. Even if you don't give them to the person you're naming, just get them and sign them and put them up somewhere. And third, make a plan.
Right.
That's the first step. Make a plan. You're not ready to talk about death. That's fine, but have an idea of what you own, where it is, and who you want to have it. And once you can get over that hurdle of thinking about death, because I honestly feel it's a little selfish to not think about it if you have children,
Right. 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 I
because
agree.
the natural order of things is they are going to survive you.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
there's this now push of ensuring that our kids have wealth, so you can't do that without planning for their future. So don't
Right.
leave them out here to the wolves with nothing. If you can give them a head start, absolutely do it.
Right. And, it's funny because I said this again when we was talking insurance. I have no clue where anything that my mother has is. I honestly have no clue. No matter how many times I tell her, I was like, oh, like I gave her numbers of colleagues who I know who are attorneys, and she ain't called nobody. Like at least with my father, I know that okay, he got a will done. and I know where all of his important papers are in one centralized location. So if something happened, I could go there. But if my mother, she got so many insurance policies with different places, and I have no clue what anything is. And I had a heartfelt talk with her. I was like, you know what? And I got this from one of my homeboys. One of my homeboys said before his mother passed, she actually just pulled out a notebook
Mhm.
and wrote down everything. I want this color casket. I want these color flowers. I got these bank accounts in these places. These are the account numbers. These are the login numbers. She didn't have a will in place, but at least they had some generalized idea of everything that was out there as far as insurance policies, because the number of like unclaimed insurance policies and bank accounts, I
Mhm.
looked it up,
It's
is we're
absurd.
talking big millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars a year sitting out there because people don't know that their loved ones passed away with these assets, and they just in this big ass pool. And I'd be damned if it's something out there that's entitled for you. You should have some recourse to be able to get it, but you got to know where it is. So
And that's
that's
something
definitely a
most
thing.
people don't know. There is no um, real central place to you can look up a life insurance policy.
Right,
There's a website where you can put the information in, but if you're not the beneficiary, they're not going to tell you anything. So
right.
they're not even
Yeah,
going to respond.
yeah. As
So
they shouldn't. If I was advising them, I'd be like, if it's, I mean, hey, it is what it is. That would be the advice I would give them. Like,
yeah,
if it ain't the beneficiary, we don't even need to pull that up. But as you know, you got to know where stuff is. I think the conversation is always the first point. We got to start just having conversations about this stuff. I mean, you know, like I said to start this out, 70% of African Americans don't have a will or some type of estate plan in place. So it's something that's really pervasive in our community. So hey, I definitely appreciate you coming in to kind of give us this gems. And you know, hey, we definitely also would love to have you back sometime as a friend of the channel to give us some more insight and maybe play a fun game. I came up with this concept I think is a fun game. It's going to be called overrated or underrated. Okay. And I'm gonna throw out certain topics that are generally finance related, you know, at that nexus, and we could just go through whether we think they're overrated or underrated. I think that'll be a real fun thing to do with you because I got some personal opinions on things that we probably gonna disagree on, but it'll be fun to have the discussion. So I appreciate you coming on. If you want to give any information or anything to the people, as far as the name of your firm or anything, here's a good chance to do that. And I'm gonna make sure I put the name of your prestigious firm. I'll link all of that stuff in the description box. So if anybody got any family out there in your neck of the woods who need any of this estate planning done, they can definitely reach out to you.
absolutely. I will give you one overrated before I get into the others.
Go
Um,
ahead. Go ahead. What is it? I'm gonna see if I agree with you. Here it go. Overrated, underrated. This is the first official overrated, underrated with a guest. Go ahead. What is it?
Overrated thinking that you have to treat your kids equally, especially when it comes to property, and thinking that you can leave your life insurance policy to one kid and making them or telling them to divide it with the others. That's overrated because they don't have to. So if you want
Right. Right.
to get some, you either need to put it in a trust because you're doing that because you got concerns about how they're going to spend it, or
Right. Right.
name everybody. So that's my
Yeah.
overrated right there.
Yeah. Hey, that's going to be one that I agree with you on. It's completely overrated. I got one child, and my children are 15 and 11, and one makes really rational, thought out decisions, and the other one is impulsive. So it would be a miscarriage of future generations for me to, you know, if that pattern continues, to leave everything equally. You got to leave. Hey, it's not leaving anybody out. And then I think the other thing to add on that is that, you know, as much as family love each other, I don't know about you all, but I've never seen a collective group of people act as ignorant as when a death occurs in the family. It was people over my great grandmother's house. I was like, God damn, the body not even cold yet. Y'all over here trying to steal little knickknacks and like
I
what
told
are
you
you doing?
They fight over the flowers.
Yeah, my grandmother had a fish. I don't know if you ever seen this fish. It was a weird ass thing. It's like a fish on the plaque, and it sings. You know what fish I'm talking about? The head turns and it sings, and that was like a coveted item. I was like, why the fuck y'all going through all this over a singing fish? It was singing like Conway Twitty or something real country. It was the craziest thing. But death brings about a lot of emotions,
yes.
and in the some type of, and finances bring about a lot of emotions. And I'm not saying that a lot of family members are like this, but there are people out there, and I've seen them. I've seen people, which is crazy as hell. You know, me, do I look like the type of person who want to wait till somebody pass away so I could get something? Hell no. I want the stuff I want now, and I ain't got the time to wait for it. But there are people out there who bank on and prepare their future plans on, well, I know when this person leaves, I'll be able to get this house, so at least I don't have to pay rent. And they already out there thinking about that stuff, which is petty as hell to me. But hey, this is true. So I'm gonna agree with you. I think it's overrated. You don't have to be equal to your kids. I think the distribution should be based on the character and the skill set and the ability of the kids. If one kid is a shining star and the other one is a colossal disaster, I'm not going to contribute to your colossal disasterisms.
And don't put that other kid in charge of reining in the disaster. That's not fair.
Yeah, but a lot of times though, I think that's with. I hate to say this, but a lot of times that burden, if you're the older child, a lot of people just presume you're the oldest, so you should know you're supposed to take care of your little sister. You're the oldest, so I'm gonna just leave it to you, and you gonna do the right thing. Man, please, don't nobody want that type of pressure. I know I wouldn't want that type of pressure, especially if, like, I'll tell you right now, I love, rest in peace, I love my brother, but some people have siblings they can live with and have a co-ownership in a house with, and I was always jealous of those type of people. I'd be like, man, how y'all do this without killing each other? So you got to know the situation that you're in. You got to know the personalities that you're in, because death and money could cause family not to speak to each other for years. So I definitely agree that that's overrated. We aren't going to do that. Hey, as always, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Again, thanks to you, Counselor, for coming on board. We're definitely going to have you back. Y'all make sure y'all take care. Have a good weekend. Be blessed. Peace.